Tell me do something for God and country and go back to work.
That's a good one right there.
I'm gonna kick your butt, chum.
What if I told you that one of the most famous reality shows on TV, Pawn Stars, might be faker than the items they reject? Yep. The truth they don't want you to know is about to blow your mind. Pawn Stars has built its reputation as a behind-the-scenes look at rare treasures walking into a pawn shop and everyday people striking life-changing deals. It feels real, raw, and spontaneous. But here's the problem.
First piece of merchandising ever done for Superman.
The more you dig into it, the more it looks like a carefully staged show designed for TV, not reality. And today, I'm pulling back the curtain on all the smoke and mirrors they've tried to keep hidden. Stick around, because the story behind Pawn Stars is bigger than just TV magic. It's about contracts, carefully scripted negotiations, planted customers, and how the real pawn shop you thought you knew might not be so real after all. Pawn Stars launched back in 2009 on the History Channel, and at first, it felt revolutionary. Instead of a show about crime or cooking, here was a gritty look at a Las Vegas pawn shop where anything could walk through the door. One episode, it's a Civil War musket. Next episode, it's a vintage Rolex or even a piece of rock and roll history. The shop itself, Gold and Silver Pawn, was real. That's what hooked people in. A real shop, real customers, real money on the line. But the truth? That's only half the story. Let's start with the so-called walk-in customers. You know, those random people who wander in with grandma's old coin collection or a guitar once strummed by Jimi Hendrix? Yeah, they're not so random. In fact, almost none of them are. Many of those customers are pre-screened, contacted in advance, or even hired actors. According to multiple reports and even statements from people who appeared on the show, the producers scout items and people beforehand. They don't just wait around hoping something interesting shows up. It's all carefully curated.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks for showing it to me.
Thanks.
Brings back memories. Come on, chum.
One woman revealed she applied online to be on the show with her vintage toy collection. She wasn't just walking in off the street. She went through casting. Others have admitted they were contacted because they had a rare item that would look good on camera. That means when Rick says, "So what do you got here today?"
What?
He already knows. He knows what's coming through that door, he's already researched the item, and the expert to authenticate it has been lined up days in advance. And speaking of experts, how many times have we seen the same faces?
Huh?
The book guy, the gun guy, the coin guy. Viewers might think Rick just happens to know someone who can drop everything to drive down to the shop in an hour. In reality, these experts are scheduled like clockwork. Sometimes they're even waiting in the back of the shop during filming days, just waiting for their cue. Now let's talk about negotiations. On TV, it feels like a game of poker. The customer wants $10,000, Rick offers $2,000, and they battle it out. But here's the kicker, the deal is usually agreed on before cameras even roll. The haggling? That's mostly for show. Multiple insiders have admitted that prices are settled off camera. Then they redo the negotiation scene so it looks authentic. And if you're wondering why customers are willing to take way less money than their item is supposedly worth, it's often because they've signed contracts that limit what they can do. Yes, contracts. People appearing on Pawn Stars are required to sign release forms, and some say those forms dictate how much they can argue, how they can act, and what can or can't be said on camera. In other words, by the time you see someone sweating it out in front of Rick, the outcome was already locked in. But here's the part that really shocks people, the pawn shop itself. While Gold and Silver Pawn is a real business, when the show is filming, it's basically a closed set. Real customers are turned away, and the only people allowed in are cast, crew, and pre-approved participants. Some visitors to the shop have even complained that when they visited, they couldn't actually do business. It was more like a tourist attraction than a functioning pawn shop. And honestly, that makes sense. Can you imagine trying to run a real pawn shop with camera crews everywhere, retakes of lines, and staged negotiations? It wouldn't work. So, what's portrayed as an authentic day in the life of a pawn shop is really a TV production. Now let's talk about the stars themselves. Rick Harrison, his son Corey, and of course Chumlee. On TV, they're shown as hardworking, funny,
I don't need this. You guys can have that shirt. I don't need to work anymore. I'm rich.
down-to-earth guys. But behind the scenes, there's plenty of drama. Chumlee, for example, has had multiple legal issues that the show rarely touches on. Corey has been known to have conflicts with both his dad and the producers. And Rick? He's not just the friendly pawn shop owner, he's a businessman who's made millions off the show, appearances, and merchandising, while the shop itself is more of a backdrop. The irony is, the show that made its name on authenticity might be one of the least authentic reality shows out there. Here's the challenge. Does it even matter?
No! No!
If Pawn Stars is staged, does that make it any less entertaining? That's the question fans have wrestled with for years. Some argue that as long as it's fun to watch, who cares if it's real? But others feel betrayed, like they were tricked into thinking they were watching real-life negotiations when in fact they were watching scripted TV. This tension is what keeps the controversy alive. To understand why Pawn Stars turned into a scripted reality show, you have to look at the bigger picture. Reality TV as a genre has always walked the line between real and fake. Shows like Storage Wars, American Pickers, even Keeping Up with the Kardashians, all of them rely on some level of staging. Why? Because real life is boring. If Pawn Stars really showed 8 hours in a pawn shop, you'd mostly see people pawning wedding rings for rent money or haggling over $20. That doesn't sell ad slots on TV. So producers have to pump it up. They pick flashy items, rare artifacts, and quirky characters. They rehearse conversations. They cut out the boring bits. And before you know it, you've got a show that feels real, but isn't. It's also about control. The History Channel isn't gambling on chance. They can't afford for an episode to be a dud. They need guaranteed drama.
Chumlee,
What is wrong with you?
that is probably the worst outfit I have ever seen anyone have on their body.
Guaranteed laughs, and guaranteed wow moments. That means planning every episode like a movie. The challenge is, once fans catch on, it changes the way you watch. Suddenly, Rick's lowball offers don't feel clever, they feel rehearsed. Chumlee's goofy comments don't feel natural, they feel like lines from a script. And the more you know, the harder it is to enjoy the show the same way again. You want to know more?
You gonna work hard! So yes, sir! You gonna be committed! So yes, sir!
So here's the big reveal. The truth they've tried to hide. Pawn Stars is not a reality show in the traditional sense. It's not a peek into the daily life of a pawn shop. It's a TV series built around the idea of a pawn shop, with staged deals, pre-arranged customers, scripted negotiations, and a shop that functions more as a set than a business. The pawn part is real enough to look authentic, but the stars part? That's the only thing that truly matters. The stars are what keep viewers hooked, not the shop. The whole show is essentially one long performance. And yet, it worked.
I'll give you $4,500.
For over a decade, millions of people tuned in. The shop became a Las Vegas tourist hotspot, and Rick Harrison became a household name. The fakery didn't stop the success. If anything, it fueled it. That's the paradox of Pawn Stars. The more fake it is, the better it works as TV. So, is Pawn Stars fake? The short answer? Yes, at least in the way it's presented. The customers aren't random, the deals aren't spontaneous, and the pawn shop isn't as open as it seems. But the long answer is more complicated. It's fake, but it's still fun. It's scripted, but it still tells fascinating stories about history, artifacts, and human curiosity. At the end of the day, Pawn Stars might not be the authentic slice of Vegas pawnshop life it pretends to be, but it is a well-oiled entertainment machine. And maybe that's the real deal we've all agreed to. For more deep dives like this, subscribe before Chumlee pawns your Rolex, smash that like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for hanging out, see you next time.